Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivarada Raja Jana Rantana Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Yamuna Tira Vanacharya Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Shtota Sata Shri Srimad Abhayacharna Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Name Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Welcome to everyone to our Sunday program. We are continuing our discussion on the ancient text of Bhagavad Gita, a very, very ancient book of knowledge. And we are on chapter 7, text 15. Okay, please repeat. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, chanting the Sanskrit. Namam Duskriti no Mudha. Namam Duskriti no Mudha. Prapadyante Naradhamaha. Prapadyante Naradhamaha. Mayaya Pahrita Jnana. Mayaya Pahrita Jnana. Asuram bhavamashritah. Asuram bhavamashritah. Namam Duskriti no Mudha. Prapadyante Naradhamaha. Mayaya Pahrita Jnana. Asuram bhavamashritah. Please repeat. Namam Duskriti no Mudha. Prapadyante Naradhamaha. Mayaya Pahrita Jnana. Asuram bhavamashritah. Namam Duskriti no Mudha. Prapadyante Naradhamaha. Mayaya Pahrita Jnana. Asuram bhavamashitaha. Namam dushkritino mudha. Prapadyante naradhamaha. Ayaya paridajnana. Asuram bhavamashitaha. Namam dushkritino mudha. Prapadyante naradhamaha. Mayaya paridajnana. Asuram bhavamashitaha. Okay, any of the ladies? Namam dushkritino mudha. Prapadyante naradhamaha. Maya paridajnana. Asuram bhavamashitaha. Namam dushkritino mudha. Prapadyante naradhamaha. Mayaya paridajnana. Asuram bhavamashitaha. Okay. All right, translation, because we already did the word to word last week. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Okay, so before we begin this verse, I'd like to again, like last week, go to the fourth verse of this chapter as to understand the context and how Krishna is leading up to this particular verse that we're reading. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita informs us, Sri Krishna informs us in text 4, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, all together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. So as we saw last week, this is a complete description of this material world. This material world, you can describe it in many, many ways. You can use what is most widely used in the scientific community today is what is that thing called? The table of chemicals? Like, what is that? The periodic table, that's right. The periodic table. And you have, I don't know how many elements you have in that. 118 elements. Okay. And then there's some ones that are like temporary or something like that. So that's one way of describing, the elements. And the truth is, although that is the most widely known, there are multiple ways in which you can describe this material world. And Krishna is describing using one of these methods, which is prevalent in the Vedic texts, that you have earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then you have the mind, intelligence, and false ego. So these are actually material things. We are different to the mind, we are different to the intelligence. That's why we say my mind. This subject of the mind is analyzed in great detail in Bhagavad Gita, in other sections of this book. Similarly, intelligence also is dealt with in great detail in Bhagavad Gita. And these are, thank you. These are 8 separated material energy. Okay, so you have all this matter, and then Krishna in the next chapter, in the next verse, he says in text 5, he says, besides this, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So apart from matter, you have something else going on, because apart from matter, you have living entities who are trying to control this matter. And so you have matter, you have some people trying to control matter, and this is where in this part, in the verse that we are reading today, Krishna describes that You could go to text 15 and just go right to the first paragraph. And you'll see that mukti or liberation, there. Mukti or liberation from the laws of material nature is sought by the leaders of mankind in different ways and with great plans and perseverance for a great many years and births. So, you have matter, you have the living entities that are trying to control matter. And of these living entities that control matter, no one controls as much as human beings. Right? You have different controllers. So you have, I was giving the example of a dung beetle. On Tuesday, I was giving an example. So even the dung beetle is trying to control matter in a certain way, and it's trying to roll it over or whatever. It's trying to do. You have different entities, and if you see, sometimes you walk around, you'll see fire ants have built, colonies. That's what they call, ant colonies. And you try touching it, immediately you'll see their anger, coming out, and it's better you don't step on an anthill. So you have different living entities controlling, but human beings try to control matter more than any other species in this world. And human beings are the only species that ponder about other living entities controlling matter. Like, we're the only ones who study how birds make nests, or different characters of different species and things like that. And why are we doing that? Because there is a fascination of controlling matter. And this fascination of controlling matter, we are not satisfied just by us controlling matter. We want to understand how other living entities are also controlling matter. And what is mukti or liberation? Because when we try to control matter, we cannot control it completely. We try, to control it in different ways. We try to come up with different solutions, and it leads to more problems. And mukti or liberation is, this is a very interesting definition that Srila Prabhupada makes here, is liberation from all laws of material nature. All inebrities of material nature. Even if one wants to be charitable, material nature puts a limit on how charitable you can be. There is a limit on how charitable you can be. In the material world, there is a limitation. There is some limitation or the other on every single activity. And the ultimate the ultimate limitation comes in the form of, anybody can guess? Death. And death is the right answer. What is death ultimately caused by? Time. Time is that ultimate limitation. You have what is called as time. Nobody can really understand what time is. Time is something that is running, that you can't reverse, you can't see. It influences everything. A very simplistic definition, of time is, they say, okay, what is time? And they say, well, time is just a series of events, but it's not that simple. It's, you feel that something is making things change. It's making things go through the course of life, whatever species that may be. And matter itself goes through all these cyclical changes and seasonal changes because of the power of time. And time is that ultimate limiting factor, which many people, as Prabhupada writes here, sought by the leaders of mankind, liberation is sought by leaders of mankind in different ways with great plans and perseverance for a great many years and births. So this includes even people who are trying to, through the means of different, great penances, austerities, by observing different fasts and undertaking extreme rituals or practices are trying to liberate themselves from this influence, especially of the influence of time, because the influence of time eventually leads one to death. That's what happens. Time leads one to death. And so, Krishna, going back to text that we were reading, so we're going to text 6 now. Etad yonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagatah prabhavah pralayas. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. So, you have matter, you have living entities like us, trying to control matter. Of all these living entities, human beings control matter the most. And Krishna is saying that he's introducing a third personality. You have matter, you have the living entities controlling matter, and then he says, there is me. And who is me? I am the origin and dissolution. I am the controller of both. So, now, going to text 14, jumping all the way to text 14, Daivi esha gunamai mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So, it's a very, very important point to understand that practically from our birth, and not just our birth, if you read Bhagavad Gita, you will understand that this life that we are currently in is an experience in a particular material body. We have had many experiences in many material bodies which were called our past lives, and the Vedic science informs us that we will continue to have these kind of births. We will continue to reincarnate. And this is all being done under the supervision of the laws of material nature. You have the laws of material nature along with, and one of those laws of material nature, which is actually a very, very important law of material nature, is called karma. And karma determines what we are experiencing in this life, why each of us look the way we look, why we are born the way we are, what are our tastes, what are our interests, and depending, especially in the human form of life, depending on the actions that we perform in this life, our next life gets determined. Now, Krishna is informing that this divine energy is very difficult to overcome. It's extremely difficult. Although people are constantly trying to overcome it, we ourselves are and we don't understand that that's what we're trying to do. But Bhagavad Gita informs us that's what we're doing every single minute of our life. This is what we are doing. Even when we're just seated over here, we tend to move ourselves. And just that movement, we're trying to be a little comfortable. And that's a form of control and a desire to control matter. And therefore, and we can see, we somehow we have to adjust. In this world, it's difficult to overcome. But those who surrender to Krishna can easily overcome it. This is the secret. This is what Bhagavad Gita is trying to teach us. Bhagavad Gita is trying to teach us. Krishna is informing us that all we need to do is surrender unto Him. And this is the process of Bhakti Yoga. And because yoga means to connect with the Supreme. When we connect with the Supreme, when we connect with the source of both the material and the spiritual, then we become liberated from the three modes of material nature. We become liberated from the laws of material nature. Why do we need to become liberated from the laws of material nature? Well, first off, that's what we're trying to do anyways. We're doing this whether we understand it or not. We are doing this even before we knew what our mom's name is. And we will continue, and we will do this in any species of life. So that's one thing. Well, why do we want to do it? Because we as spiritual living entities. We are spirit souls inhabiting a material body. These spirit souls are pleasure seeking entities. We are all seeking happiness. We are all seeking pleasure. And we do not like to be confined and limited in our experience of pleasure. We want it to go on always. And therefore, there is an attempt constant attempt to seek that pleasure. Now, Krishna says that, but we can easily attain that if we surrender unto Him. And why are we not surrendering? So that is the point. That's where we come to this verse, text 15. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. So those persons who have these four characteristics, so these four characteristics are broadly called as miscreants or rascals. They are called dushkritina. So this Krishna calls them, he uses very, very heavy language. This is, of course, one of Srila Prabhupada's oft-quoted verses. And so we are going to be discussing their category one by one. So you can go to the paragraph that begins with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth paragraph. Okay, number 1. No, it begins with number 1. Yeah. So, Prabhupada writes, the Mudas are those who are grossly foolish, like the hard-working beasts of burden. They want to enjoy the fruits of their labor by themselves, and so do not want to part with them for the supreme. The typical example of the beast of burden is the ass. The humble beast is made to work very hard by his master. The ass does not really know for whom he works so hard day and night. He remains satisfied by filling his stomach with a bundle of grass, sleeping for a while under fear of being beaten by his master, and satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. The ass sings poetry and philosophy sometimes, but this braying sound only disturbs others. This is the position of a foolish fruitive worker who does not know for whom he should work. He does not know that karma, action, is meant for yajna, sacrifice. Most often, those who work very hard day and night to clear the burden of self-created duties say that they have no time to hear of the immortality of the living being. To such mudas, material gains which are destructible are life's all in all. Despite the fact that the mudas only enjoy only a very small fraction of the fruit of labor. Sometimes they spend sleepless days and nights for fruitive gain. And although they may have ulcers or indigestion, they are satisfied with practically no food. They are simply absorbed in working hard day and night for the benefit of illusory masters. Ignorant of their real master, the foolish workers waste their valuable time serving mammon. Unfortunately, they never surrender to the supreme master of all masters, nor do they take time to hear of him from the proper sources. The swine who eat the night soil do not care to accept sweetmeats made of sugar and ghee. Similarly, the foolish worker will untiringly continue to hear of the sense-enjoyable tidings of the flickering mundane world, but will have very little time to hear about the eternal living force that moves the material world. So most people, many people, they fall under this category which are called grossly foolish, like hard-working beasts of burden. They're so busy working hard that they don't have any time to pause and think. They don't have any time to pause and think. Why? Because they are enamored, as it said here, that they are they want to enjoy the fruits of labor by themselves and do not want to part with them for the Supreme. So these people are very, very attached to a little sense gratification that they may receive. And that little sense gratification is provided because you need to give something. Just like here, the example that is given is the ass, the donkey. And it's a very, very good example because there's a reason why the donkey is said to be dumb, is an example of being dumb, is an example of being foolish. Because the donkey works for, a bundle of grass, but that bundle of grass is found everywhere. The donkey doesn't have to work to get that bundle of grass. There are other animals that eat grass too, like cows. The cows won't work as hard as the donkeys because the cow sees that there's grass everywhere. But the donkey does, because the donkey doesn't have time to think. The donkey works very hard, day and night, and this is really interesting, that satisfying his sex appetite at the risk of being repeatedly kicked by the opposite party. If anybody hasn't watched a video, you can. Not really a very pleasant video to watch, but I've seen it, where you have a donkey, so the male donkey, the he donkey, approaches the she donkey for sex. And he approaches her from behind, and she whacks him right in the face. And it's not just once, twice, she whacks, and it's really hard. He doesn't dodge it. He gets smacked right there. And he keeps going again and again and again. The example, why? Because he's getting some little pleasure. There's definitely pleasure in sex. But the point is that pleasure worth it after experiencing so much suffering by being kicked left, right, and center? The donkey says yes. Now, why? Because the donkey doesn't have time. The donkey is too busy. The example is the donkey is too dumb because he's too busy working hard. So similarly, in this material world, right now in society, people are very busy working very, very hard. They're working very hard to earn money. They're working very hard to earn wealth and, prestige, power, all these kind of things. But after gaining this, after going through all the trouble because the higher you go up in society, the more enemies you have. The more people are... Why? Because in anything that you can see, the coveted positions. Okay, so you want a really well-paying job. The really well-paid jobs are fewer in number than the not so well-paid jobs. So there's competition. There's competition for anything that is covetable in this world. So automatically there's people fighting, there's politics, there's all kinds of things that come with that. But in spite of that, people go for it. Now, texts like Bhagavad Gita, they encourage us to stop this madness and ask, why are you doing this? What are you doing? What are you gaining from this? And how long is that happiness going to last? And all these questions cannot be answered unless one understands who one actually is. As Srila Prabhupada is saying here, that the foolish worker will untiringly continue to hear of the sense-enjoyable tidings of the flickering mundane world, but will have very little time to hear about the eternal living force that moves the material world. So, the Krishna consciousness movement encourages people to stop this madness. Why are you working so hard? Why do we have to work so hard? In fact, one who understands that, okay, I am spirit soul. I'm not this body. I am working so hard day and night. I am working just like this donkey. And people work, it's ridiculous how hard people work. And they eat nothing, next to nothing. They eat crap. But why? Because they've been told, and they are fully convinced, that this salary that they're getting With that money, they can enjoy life. But how much can you enjoy? I was, speaking with one particular person that I know. See, he gets a certain amount of salary. By the time the money actually comes to his hand, it's half. What they claim on your, they say, okay, your per annum income is whatever, $100,000. By the time the money actually comes to your hand, you only actually get in hand for you to be able to enjoy that year, you have $50,000. Because they take taxes out. Then they make you pay for super high, expensive health insurance. And then, you take some for whatever, social. You pay some for social security, which you're supposed to get back later in your life. I know one particular individual who's at the age of 75 right now. He has so much money in his social, but he wants to use it. But if he wants to use it, he has to pay a tax to take all that money out. And there's just some crazy things that the government makes you do. Ultimately, people try. There's so many ways they try to escape taxes. And guess what? I was talking to another businessman. And this is where the example of the Muda comes, right? So the businessman was saying that he has a wonderful accountant who somehow makes all the money he gets from his company, he makes it look, somehow I guess that's called cooking the books. Making it look like he didn't earn any profit, he just got just broke even that year. And because of breaking even, what does he not need to do? He doesn't need to pay taxes because he didn't earn all that money, but actually earned money. So you have big businessmen in this country who pay practically next to nothing in taxes. This is not just this country. Actually, he was from another country, also in this continent of North America, and paying next to nothing in taxes. But the Muda, who's grossly foolish, who's earning a paycheck, that guy got no other way to escape his taxes. He's got to pay straight up taxes. I've heard in countries like Switzerland, the tax itself is 50% or something. It's some crazy amount. And this is how much they pay. Now, ultimately, what do we do? Ultimately, we need a place to live. We need some food to eat. We need some clothing. Can these material necessities be achieved in some other way? Is there any possibility? Bhagavad Gita actually gives solutions to these things. And the Krishna consciousness movement is giving these kind of solutions. For instance, after this program, you'll all be served with some food. Now, one is this food, which is called prasadam, it's called the mercy of the Lord, is way more healthy than what you will find outside. Second is it's cooked with love and it's extremely delicious. Very, very tasty. But the best thing is it's free. And if you come here anytime, when we serve breakfast or lunch, any day of the week, you can get this food. You can get this prasadam. How are we able to do this? We don't earn any money. It's through donations. But how are we supported? Because we have taken shelter. We have surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is ultimately providing, He is the origin of both the material and spiritual worlds. And this is not just that we are something special, just because we have surrendered, we are being provided. No, any devotee, any person who pauses and thinks, well, actually the purpose, because in only the human form of life do we pause. The animals do not have the ability to pause and think like this. The animals are therefore foolish. The example of the animal is used, and we also, in a past life, were definitely in this species of life, once upon a time. Now we have come to the species of life where we can ask questions, we can think about these things. Therefore, it is our duty to mold our life in such a way that we are able to hear about these things, we're able to associate with devotees, we're able to chant Hare Krishna, engage in a process of self-realization. Why? Because it will help us liberate from the laws of material nature. It will help us achieve true happiness by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. We are controlled. The absolute foolish people in this world, which will come later, is one of the categories, is those who partake of the atheistic nature. They declare that there's no God. Another great foolishness. So, this is about the Mudas. Okay, going to the second class. Okay. Another class of Dushkriti or miscreant is called Naradhama, or the lowest of mankind. Nara means human being, and Adhama means lowest. Out of the 8,400,000 species, different species of living beings, there are 400,000 human species. Out of these, there are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. The civilized human beings are those who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life. Those who are socially and politically developed but who have no religious principles must be considered Naradhamas. Nor is religion without God religion. Because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relation with him. In the Gita, the personality of Godhead clearly states that there is no authority above him, and he is the supreme truth. The civilized form of human life is meant for reviving the lost consciousness of his eternal relation with the supreme truth, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is all-powerful. Whoever loses this chance is classified as a Naradhama. We get information from the revealed scriptures that when the baby is in the mother's womb, an extremely uncomfortable situation, he prays to God for deliverance and promises to worship him alone as soon as he gets out. To pray to God when he is in difficulty is a natural instinct in every living being because he is eternally related with God. But after his deliverance, the child forgets the difficulties of birth and forgets his deliverer also, being influenced by Maya, the illusory energy. It is the duty of the guardians of children to revive the divine consciousness dormant in them. The 10 processes of reformatory ceremonies, as enjoined in the Manusmriti, which is the guide to religious principles, are meant for reviving God consciousness in the system of Varnashrama. However, no process is strictly followed now in any part of the world. Therefore, 99.9% of the population is Naradhama. When the whole population becomes Naradhama, naturally, all their so-called education is made null and void by the all-powerful energy of physical nature. According to the standard of the Gita, a learned man is he who sees on equal terms the learned Brahmana, the dog, the cow, the elephant, and the dog-eater. That is the vision of a true devotee. Sri Nityananda Prabhu, who is the incarnation of Godhead as divine master, delivered the typical Naradhamas, the brothers Jagai and Madhai, and showed how the mercy of a real devotee is bestowed upon the lowest of mankind. So the Naradhama, who is condemned by the personality of Godhead, can again revive his spiritual consciousness only by the mercy of a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in propagating Bhagavad Dharma or activities of the devotees, has recommended that people submissively hear the message of the personality of Godhead. The essence of this message is Bhagavad Gita. The lowest among human beings can be delivered by the submissive hearing process only. But unfortunately, they even refuse to give an oral reception to these messages, and what to speak of surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord. Naradhamas, or the lowest of mankind, willfully neglect the prime duty of the human being. So, now, we spoke about the Mudas who are, classified as the foolish workers. They're the hardworking beasts of burden. So they're generally very hardworking, and they require a master. So they generally have they're generally classified as the different workers. And these workers have their bosses, their masters, who can be the CEOs of different companies or politicians or gang leaders, right? So all these things are there. I mean, otherwise they're completely foolish. Why would you do these kind of things? But because, you are completely surrendered unto a particular master. Now, the second category refers to Naradama, which refers to those who are civilized human beings who have regulative principles of social, political, and religious life, but who have, social and politically developed, but who have no religious principles. So these are socially and politically developed, so they're leaders. They set the standard, they set the behavior, they say, okay, this is how we're supposed to socially behave. This is the political system of this country. But these political systems or these social systems have no consideration of God. Or even if they have a consideration of God, it is extremely mundane. For instance, we have many religious leaders today, or many religious systems and beliefs, that using those beliefs, they believe that you can exploit this earth. Because why? This earth has been given to us for us to have control. We're supposed to have dominion, right? Dominion over other animals. So when it says God gave dominion to us over animals, they take it to mean that we can exploit them. And so they build these horrible slaughterhouses, this slaughterhouse industry, where animals are killed by the millions, or billions, actually. And yet, they talk about justice. How can you have justice in this kind of a world? It is not possible. It is not possible to have justice where you think that one species of animals, like the whales, or some endangered species of birds are okay, but another type of bird called the chicken or the turkey is only raised for you to put on your plate. This kind of skewed up, and this spreads everywhere. They think that, okay, we're Americans, therefore we have to hate the Russians. And the Russians think that you have to hate the Americans. Or one religious system says all the Jews need to die. And it's literally there in their texts and scriptures and this and that. But then you have the other side where you have one particular religious system saying that they are the chosen people and therefore they're superior to everybody else. Why are they superior to everybody else? Because they're the chosen people. Why are they the chosen people? Because God says so. Why did God say so? Now you become an offender. How dare you ask this kind of question? You are a disbeliever. This kind of skewed up religious system is propounded by those who are Naradhamas. They're the lowest of mankind. Why? Because, as Srila Prabhupada says, you have 8.4 million different species of living beings, of which you have 400 human species. Of these, there are numerous lower forms of human life that are mostly uncivilized. So, it's only the higher class of human beings who even think that, okay, we need to have, they are the ones who are going to have social and political systems, because they understand that by having these social and political systems, they can expand their control of this world better. How much can you control in a chaotic world? You can't control much. But if you organize people, and most people are lazy, they're not willing to work very hard, so you give them a few breadcrumbs in the form of salaries, and then you can make them work really hard so that you can become really rich. And when you want to become really rich, you need to have some systems. You need to have some systems. You need to have an army to protect all that wealth. So this is what they do. But they're the lowest of mankind because they also do not recognize Krishna or God. Or even if they do recognize him, God is a person who facilitates their mindless existence and exploitation in this world. And then, nor is religion without God religion. Now you have other systems of belief who say that, well, there is the universe, and the universe is there, and the universe is reciprocating with us. And what else? What are these kind of things they say? For instance, they say that you have the energy out there, and that the universe is speaking to me. But what is this universe? You don't know. There is no conception. There are systems of philosophy like Buddhism, which can look to be spiritual, but they are not. They are because there is no conception of the Supreme. While Buddhism is very big on achieving liberation, or what is called as nirvana, from the laws of material existence, it does not give information about who we actually are. Buddhism cannot explain what is the nature of the spirit soul. Who is that which is transmigrating from body to body? What is that life force that is transmigrating from body to body? And whatever that is, because ultimately, if you actually study Buddhist philosophy, Buddhism says that nothing actually exists. There is nothingness. And achieving that state of nothingness is the goal of life. But this is completely rejected in Bhagavad Gita, and is actually a completely crazy proposal. If one thinks that nothing exists, then why are we existing in this nothingness? And why is this nothingness seem to have so many things in it? And why is it so hard to come out of nothing? Like when you talk to someone, if you have a loved one, and they're going through some difficult, they're going through some mental trip right now. They're behaving like a whatever, they're throwing a tantrum. Okay? And you go up to them. Okay. What's the problem? What's the problem? Nothing. I don't believe that. What is the problem? But they say nothing. But that nothing, which is a very standard reply that there is nothing wrong with them, is actually a sign that there's something up. Something's up. It's not nothing. There is something. So actually this nothingness is completely foolish, because we don't have any experience of this nothingness. Never can our mind be filled with nothing. If somebody is thinking, I have to stop the mind from all desires, that is a desire in itself. It is a self-defeating philosophy. It is circular logic. And the circular logic, it doesn't. So ultimately they tell you to stop thinking. But it doesn't give us information as to what is the purpose of human life. Why did this all come into existence in the first place? Why are we here? Okay, everything is nothing. But why did all this nothing why has it come to be that all this nothing looks like something? Buddhism doesn't answer that question, and it tells you to not answer that. It doesn't, just don't think about that. We are telling you to stop thinking. Why are you asking all these questions? By stopping to think, all your problems will be solved. Again, in the material world, we can see that if we stop thinking, that generally doesn't turn out to be good for us in life. Sometimes we get frustrated. We're very desirous of eating, whatever we like to eat. And we know it's bad for us or whatever. But then it's like, or whatever, we want to enjoy a certain way, we want to spend a lot of money, whatever. We're like, today I'm just going to stop thinking and I'm just going to go for it. Or just, you drink as much as you want, or you just go crazy. Right? You indulge. What is the result of that indulgement? That indulgence leads to misery. It always leads to misery. Always. There is suffering. So, not thinking doesn't help us. So, religious systems that without God is not religion. Because the purpose of following religious principles is to know the supreme truth and man's relation with him. So, when the whole population becomes Naradama, naturally all their so-called education is made null and void by the all-powerful energy of physical nature. So, you have very powerful persons like Elon Musk, who believes that we live in a simulation. It's so strange. He's obviously very intelligent person, very influential person in this world, but he thinks we live in a simulation. He literally thinks that. But this is crazy. He cannot understand that he doesn't accept, he's an atheist. He doesn't accept that there is God. He just says this is some simulation. Who knows what it is? Maybe we're living in the video game of somebody else. Is that a happy thought? That I'm some video game character in whatever video game, and somebody's moving me around. I mean, it's just so depressing. So, this is the class. The whole, naturally, all their education is made null and void. So you have this person, you have this big PhDs, you have very intelligent people, and they come up with this philosophy that even a kid doesn't come up with. So what happened to all their education? What happened to all their philosophy? It became null and void by the all-powerful physical energy, because they are not, because they are the lowest of mankind. Not, obviously here, Srila Prabhupada is speaking about how you have 400,000 species of human beings, of which most are uncivilized, the lower ones are uncivilized, and these are supposed to be the higher ones. But there, Krishna calls them the lowest of mankind, Naradama. That's a very interesting term, because in one sense they have become more foolish than even the tribal people. Because even the tribal people have some respect for nature, they may have some respect for some kind of energy, and these people are completely mindless, absolutely foolish. Therefore they're called Naradama. And Srila Prabhupada says that the lowest among human beings can be delivered by this submissive hearing process. What is that submissive? Submissively hear the message of the personality of Godhead. The essence of this message is Bhagavad Gita. But unfortunately, they even refuse to give an oral reception to these messages. What to speak of surrendering to the will of the Supreme Lord? The Naradamas, or lowest of mankind, willfully neglect the prime duty of the human being. So you have people who are foolish, who say they don't have time to think. And then you have these great thinkers who overthink. And because of overthinking, they don't accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead either. And forget about being submissively, hearing the process of, hearing the message of Bhagavad Gita. My spiritual master, Bhakti Vikas Swami, he had a meeting with two university professors. And, it was just a discussion. And in this discussion, he was trying to bring out the point that you're all university professors, you're all very intelligent. There is so much anecdotal evidence right now for the case of reincarnation. That reincarnation is a fact. There's so much anecdotal evidence out there. And this anecdotal evidence is not from just religious or belief-related systems, but from actual studies, medical studies and things like that, that there is something called as reincarnation, that there is an existence of life outside of the bodies that we see. And there you have near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences. You have people who have remember, past lives and come with all kinds of accurate descriptions. And all of these are documented. There's more and more such evidence that comes out with every passing day. Why do professors like yourselves not take up this subject and try to do more research into this and try to bring this out? This is an important field of study that's being neglected. And this is influencing all of our lives. That, reincarnation is quite real. Now, instead of actually discussing this, at least one particular professor became so upset that my Guru Maharaj, spiritual master, would even dare to suggest him to study something. He's like, well, I don't really have time for these things, and why should I do what you're telling me to do? we're just having a discussion here, bro. It's like, chill out. It's like, the thing is, because they happen to be really, and he was like, and the whole argument was like, it was like completely like, we wanted to just have an open, it had nothing to do personal with you. We didn't do a personal attack or nothing, but he took it as a personal attack because he's like, I am such a great person. And I am such an educated professor. And who are you to even remotely suggest that I should be studying something? And the claim is, people like him, and the way he was introducing it, so I'm studying all these things because I think it'll benefit a lot of people. So the claim or the image they put is, we're here, we are professors, we are very educated people, and we are trying to help people in this world through our vast knowledge. And that is why we are here. We're very noble people. That's the impression they give. So you're like, okay, it's so very noble, you're very helpful. This is a subject matter that could be very helpful to people. How dare you come up with that statement? And how dare you tell me to do that? So, they just cannot, because to even understand Bhagavad Gita, one has to approach this, well, there's some knowledge here. There is some ancient knowledge here that's been handed down for more than 5,000 years ago, even before all the systems of education that we know today were established. In fact, all the religions that we know today were established too. 5,000 years. This is very, very ancient text. And it's been followed by very, very intelligent people. Very, very intelligent people have read and appreciated this book in all times of history. So maybe I should look at this. Maybe there's some knowledge I can gain, but these people will not do that. They look at this book, who does this? I'll analyze this. I'll do a thesis on Bhagavad Gita. I think Krishna, the reason he's saying all these things is because whatever, he was born here and he went there, and or because in this particular time in India they liked this particular personality, or they'll take the linguistic thing. Krishna means this and that's derived from this word and la la la. Completely miss the point. Completely miss the point. Because they're not submissive. And in that sense they become Naradama, because somebody who's not as intelligent as them would actually think, well, that's a valid point, because they're not so that egoistic. So that's the point that Srila Prabhupada is making over here. And the whole purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to facilitate people to hear this message of Bhagavad Gita. That's why we have this program here. It's to facilitate listening to the Bhagavad Gita and coming into the association of devotees where this message can be heard. Chanting this mantra that's over there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This sound vibration, there is a science to this, to chant this mantra. Why do we chant this? Because this, Prabhupada calls this the great chant of deliverance. Because we can achieve complete and total happiness by chanting this Mahamantra. We can realize our constitutional position. So, this is why Bhagavad Gita has been spoken, to direct us to ultimately to surrender to Krishna by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra and by associating with devotees. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much for listening. If there are any questions or comments, you're free to ask. Discussions, comments, protests, anything. Anybody has anything they'd like to ask?
I read something recently. Prabhupada says that those who remain in the material world going up and down heavenly planets into the lower planets are actually better off than those who attain the Brahma Jyoti, which I thought was interesting. He's saying there's no activity, no hope for progressive,
There's no devotee association. Actually, Acharya has also explained that there is no devotee association in the Brahma Jyoti. Yeah. Whereas here they might come across some devotee like Narada or somebody. Okay. Any other comments, questions from anyone? Oh.
Do these four discretas, I guess, do they overlap? Because it seems like the four pious men, it doesn't overlap. But it seems like, for example, Naradama and Buddha it seems the description Srila Prabhupada gives, it seems like if you analyze like general people, like I mean the professor, he's like simultaneously seems to be a Muda because he's
Yeah,
working very
you
hard.
could,
He's
yeah,
Maya, Kritajnana, etc.
I mean, the four pious people also do overlap. In the sense, like, you can, like, for instance, the, what's the Sanskrit for this? Chaturvija bhajante mam jana sukriti no arjuna artho jigyasu ratati. So, the artho, the person who is seeking economic development, can also be seeking liberation from material miseries. And it's not that, many times you'll actually find this combined. That the person who's trying to liberate himself from material miseries is also wanting a lot of wealth. They do tend to overlap. In this particular description, they definitely overlap. In fact, it's interesting because in this verse, just like Krishna is glorifying Chaturvida Bhajante Mam, he says, then actually in the next verse, he says, No, that's before that. He says, all of these are no doubtedly pious. Huh? Udara sarva evaite jnanita. So udara. So he gives that. He says that actually they're all udara. That gives the common platform. That in one sense they've been called with one name, udara. So here these are called with one name, dushkritina. So there is something common, which is why they're called dushkritina. And that common, the common here, the common factor in all of these four is that they don't surrender to the Supreme Lord, and the common factor over there is that they surrender to the Supreme Lord. They approach Him, Krishna says, and therefore udara sarva evaite. But yeah, it does seem like they like actually if you go to Maya Prakrita Jnana, you will find that it's similar to like these classes of people, but Maya Prakrita Jnana specifically speaks about those who are very intellectual, whereas the Naradhama refers to those who are seeking material happiness, who seem to be leading in material happiness, as Prabhupada says, specifically socially and political. He doesn't use the word intellectual here. That's interesting. You'll not find that word intellectual at all in the entire this particular section. But in the next section, you'll see that word, erudite knowledge, intellectual, maya, because it's jnana, right? So, and the mudas, they don't have the level of intelligence. So the level of intelligence is going up, at least in the first three. And then, so the first three, you have the muda, who's like completely foolish. Then you have somebody who's a little more intelligent, he's socially and politically adept. And then you have a guy who's even more who's more intelligent than him, that's the intellectual class, which is Maya Prakriti, which is the next category. That's kind of how it goes.
Okay.
But yeah.
Some devotees in the Shastra, I think Maharaj Parikshit, Shukadeva Goswami, they were praying to Krishna in the womb. But like, what's the general baby? What God is the general baby praying to? We can hear just from this purport, we can understand. Prabhupada says we get information from the revealed scriptures. It's found in the Bhagavatam also, that when the baby is in the mother womb, he prays to God for deliverance. So there is some prayer, because this of course happens after the baby becomes conscious, which the consciousness of the baby is said to, like the ability to perceive pain and pleasure and all these things, it starts to feel that at 2 months before delivery or something like this in the womb. There's a certain period, and at that period, it is said that that the baby in the womb prays to God and promises to worship Him because he's in an extremely uncomfortable situation. And so all babies pray according to this. But I've heard something else also in this regard. But anyways, this is what Prabhupada does say in this.
in this particular instance. This is a very important point in one sense, because we forget the misery of birth. The process of birthing is actually so painful that many times either the baby dies or the mother dies, or in some cases, unfortunately, both die. But we forgot about this. And just in the womb itself, this is confirmed by science also, that the baby's tender skin tends to get eaten, bitten by worms in the stomach of the womb of the mother, and like that, and there is experience of that pain, and we forget about all that. We don't remember any of this. It's because of Maya. Yes, Nick?
You were speaking about desires. There's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita, I think it's 270, that although desires come, the sage is like steady, he's not disturbed by it. So it's like Apurnama Telepradistam.
I can't remember right now that verse.
Yeah, Apurnama Telepradistam. I think it starts with like Apurnam.
Well, Achala Pratishtam.
Yeah, Telepradistam. I don't know.
Samudram Aptam Pratishanti Sarve. Anyways, yeah.
So it's interesting because it seems like we don't really have control over all our desires. Like we can consciously desire something, but then unconsciously we have like desires from like some scars. So it seems like, what free will do we actually have? Because even I think I don't remember where I heard it, but only thing we really have free will over is our desires. But even that is subject to the laws of material nature. So
right,
what free will do we actually have?
So it's not that. See, ultimately, desires of the living entity spring from his false ego, right? You have a particular identity, and when a living entity desires to change that identity, the identification, which can sometimes feel like it's completely uncontrolled, but in the human life is where that identity can be questioned. And you can see this, that, people constantly keep changing their identities. Now especially. They have different gender identities right now. And these are identities. But in the animal form of life, you cannot choose identities. The animal has a particular identity, and in that sense, the animal really, his will power is very limited. In that particular identity, he has that particular identity, and that particular identity determines his instinct, and that instinct is supplied by the Paramatma, super soul situated within the heart, and the Supreme Lord supplies that instinct, and using that instinct, the particular living entity acts in different ways. But a human being, in the human form of life, you're allowed to make that. You are allowed to have a desire to change your identity. When a devotee, when a particular entity changes his identity simply in the material world, he continues to be subject to the laws of material nature. But when a living entity, in the association of devotees, through the power of the association of devotees, it actually happens through the power of the association of devotees. It doesn't happen of its own accord. And if it happens of its own accord, it's from a previous life, where somebody starts to question, well, what exactly am I doing in life? But generally, through the influence of the association of a sadhu, another desire comes in. And that desire helps one change that identity. Well, actually, I'm not this material body. I'm a spirit soul who is a devotee, a servant of Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then, if he's situated in that, and he in the association of devotees, he can cultivate that desire, and through that he can overcome the other desires. Otherwise it's not possible. Is that okay? Yes, Prabhu.
You talked about the theory of Elon Musk of the simulation. So
Yeah, it's so crazy. I was shocked.
yeah, so what I understand about it is like his the way he got to that conclusion is that if it's possible to simulate like reality or consciousness or whatever this experience that we're having,
What,
through
on a
like
VR headset?
or computer or something,
Hmm.
then if that's possible, then there must have been some civilization that has done it, and then so they did it, and then
And we're part of that.
from within that simulation, there must also be other beings that are intelligent enough to do that, and it goes on.
Such
and on.
a
So
big
there must be
speculation, man.
infinite simulations like that.
Such a big speculation.
But
It's like an abyss of like really depressing theories.
But you see, like, I mean, with like AI now, it's like so advanced, and like,
Yeah.
imagine like if it got 100 times, 1,000 times more advanced, maybe that's, so like, what would you say to someone that's like convinced of that theory?
Proof that any of this AI or any of this simulation has free will of its own accord. There is no free will, there is no consciousness. It's all programmed. And now people think that they're programmed, but actually this is not true. Because if you think that you're fully programmed, then why are you coming up with all these theories? And then you say, well, maybe the person inside the simulation comes up with these theories. Do you have proof? Or maybe AI will come, well, ChatGPT comes up with all kinds of theories because it's programmed to do so. It doesn't really come up with theories that, it doesn't know what it should come up with. It's given these things. And to see the main problem is this is why they're called demons. They reduce the independent consciousness of every living entity to something that has been completely programmed. This is what atheists say. This is their whole theory of evolution, everything. We're all programmed, we're just programmed. But they never talk about who's the programmer. And where everything falls apart is, okay, all these simulations. So somebody created a simulation with a simulation with a simulation. Where is all this existing and who started the damn thing? Who started the damn thing? Do you have any experience of all of this just popping out of existence? Did your AI or VR headset just create? And if it did create, why are you making damn money out of it? Like putting copyrights and this and that and all that because you claim it, why? Because you cannot prove that this just all happened by chance. You say it happened. This is where their theory falls apart. Is that because they don't accept a controller. The moment you accept a controller, then you have to ask, why did he do this? What is the purpose? This is actually many religions don't answer this. This is why atheism is so strong. Because it looks like God just created all these people and He created heaven and hell. And anyways, what is that? There are 144,000 angels in heaven or something? Some crazy number like this. Well, I think that's a Jehovah's Witness thing. But so you have heaven, you have hell, and unless you went to the right church, you're going to go to hell. So somehow, most people go to hell forever, and a few lucky people who went to the right church, went to the right pastor, they go to heaven. Is this what kind of theory is this? Maybe the simulation sounds a little more fascinating. The point is that there is no understanding of the nature of the spirit soul. There is no understanding of the nature, and this is also why reincarnation will defeat this. Because if reincarnation is a fact, what sort of nonsense simulation are you talking about? Like reincarnation is a reality. We are transmigrating from life form to life form. And this is a fact. There's laws of material nature, and these were not created by you. These simulations were not created by you, and you didn't do that in your simulated whatever book or whatever thing. So, because then one can understand the nature of the spirit soul and understand the nature of God. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. I came a little later when you was making the statement because I went to the bathroom and I had to come back up.
Yeah.
But I heard you make a statement saying nothing is crazy. How could that be crazy when ourselves in this physical realm will not stand the test of time, nor anything else in this physical plane? It would make sense for people to say nothing is nothing when God created us from nothing. If everything is everything, then nothing would be everything because we are all connected and we all came from nothing. So if that makes any sense, so why do you think that statement is false, or why do you not agree with that statement?
Why do I not agree that everything came from nothing?
Well,
Because
nothing is nothing,
why do I not agree that nothing is nothing?
basically.
I mean, nothing is nothing, but I don't think that everything is nothing. Do you understand? Now, it seems to me that the premise of that theory that you're speaking about is that everything came from nothing. And therefore, everything is nothing, and nothing is nothing, and everything is nothing. Right? But we don't agree that everything came from nothing, because there is no evidence that everything came from nothing. That there is a supreme eternal being called God, and we are also eternally existent. We spirit souls are also eternally existent. This material world is created and destroyed, but there is Krishna informs in the Bhagavad Gita that there is a spiritual world that is eternally existing. It has always existed. And this material world is a portion of that spiritual sky which is created and destroyed again and again. We living entities are spiritual sparks that are parts and parcels of the Supreme Absolute Truth, Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, just like you have sparks in a fire. So the sparks in a fire are also of the same quality of the fire, but yet they have their individuality. So we are eternally existing just like God is eternally existing, because there has to be a creator. The Big Bang is basically nothing exploded. But how can you say that nothing exploded? Where is the proof? Where is the scientific understanding that nothing can explode? There is none. There is none. All we have experiences is something creates something else. Therefore, there's actually a very nice book. You can ask any of our devotees. I hope we have copies of that. It's called Life Comes from Life. Life does not come from matter, and matter does not come from nothing. Life comes from life, and matter comes from life. Matter produces life. Sorry, life produces matter. Life produces matter. Matter doesn't produce life. And life comes from life. Life doesn't come from matter. So life is both the source of life and matter. And therefore we, who are living beings, also have a source, which is the supreme source. And who is God? God is that entity who has not come from anything, but who has caused everything to come about. So that is the Supreme Absolute Truth. That's the Supreme Personality of God. There's an entire science about this, and it's actually very, very, very exciting science that's found in this book, Bhagavad Gita. So yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. It's 3:54. We'll end here, but we can talk. Over prasadam, you can ask, over lunch, you can ask others here questions and things like that. But we have the same program next week, same time, 2:00 on Sunday. And with that, we will actually finish this particular verse in discussion. There are two more categories that we still need to discuss. So again, thank you very much for taking the time out and attending this program. Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Request everyone to kindly go downstairs, collect your